Hold on tight. It's time again for the ride of your life at Capital Ford. And the ride of your life begins now with employee pricing for everyone on new Fords. You pay what Ford employees pay. Employee pricing means buy a new 2025 Ford F-150 for just $599 a month. Or buy a new 2025 Ford Escape plug-in hybrid, only $499 a month during our Ride of Your Life event at Capital Ford in Santa Fe.
Ladies and gentlemen, from La Casa de los Lobos, the Pit, here at the University of New Mexico, let's get ready to rumble!
Hitting you with the triple hey there. My name's Ryan Tamori. Welcome to the Pit Press Live. I can't hear, got to turn them shits up. I can't hear my snare. Welcome to the Pit Press Live. Hope everybody had a happy 4th of July weekend. I sat on my ass all day and watched baseball on Friday. It was amazing. Busy show for you today. Coming up at 8:15, former UNM football player, trying to steer clear of what you probably know him for, owner, founder, Graphic Connections, Mr. Scott Creagan, but we'll talk football with him. And then 8:45-ish, Brennan Williams. He is the owner of Go Lopes Radio. The Grand Canyon University has joined the Mountain West early, and I guess the Mountain West didn't tell the exiting members. So to me, it's over my head. I'm on a personal level, I'm excited to go see a game at Grand Canyon University. Plus, it's a hop, skip, and jump from here. So that is on the agenda today. I think Nick will join us. Go check out our website, thepitpressnm.com. Nick's been writing a lot, and I am on the verge of getting a lot up. So football season's right around the corner. Plus, at this time next week, we will be in Las Vegas for the Mountain West Conference Football Media Days. Ed will be there. Ed, before I introduce you, give me a second. The Pit Press Plus, your all-access pass to the heart and the hustle of the University of New Mexico Athletic Department. With a monthly or yearly subscription, you'll unlock behind-the-scenes stories you won't hear anywhere else. Whether you're a diehard fan, a stats junkie, or just here for the spicy locker room gossip, the Pit Press Plus has you covered. or something for you. Subscribe today. Support local sports journalism. Support us. Support the Albuquerque Journal. Jeff Grammer, Sean Ryder. The guys at the Santa Fe New Mexican, Will Weber, James Barone. And remember, Real Lobos don't settle for the sidelines. $2 a month or $25 for the entire year. I think we're still running our deal. $19.99 and kids seats are only $5. All Lobo, no filter. Go to the pitpressnm.com. Stay in the loop with Lobo Sports. Follow our socials for exclusive updates, interviews, and behind the scenes. Especially next week in Vegas. We'll be at Circa Resort. Find us on Instagram, X, and Facebook at the Pit Press NM. We're on TikTok at the Pit Press. And we are still probably doing Together We Howl in continued partnership with 505 Sports Venture Foundation and Kurt Roth, its owner and president, who's a friend of our site and our show. The virtual series spotlights the heart and hustle behind the University of New Mexico Athletic Department through live streams and podcasts. You can go watch previous episodes with defensive coordinator for the UNM football team, Spence Nowitzki, the general manager, Bo Davidson of the UNM football team, and then offensive coordinator, Luke Schleisner. Together We Howl extends beyond the field, offering fans an inside look at the stories, voices, and community spirit that drive Lobo Athletics. All right, to my partner in crime tonight, Mr. Ed Nunez. Ed, how you doing tonight?
Doing great, Ryan. I thought a lot of things going on with the Pit Press, and you did a good job of running them down.
Appreciate that. Scott Creagan in 5 minutes. If you hadn't seen the news, Grand Canyon University officially joined the Mountain West Conference today, July 8th, 2025, and it's accelerating its move from the WAC a year earlier than expected. The Antelopes or Lopes will immediately compete in 17 sports this fall. Remember, they don't have a football team. Why? I don't know. I think they're one of the biggest schools, not just online, obviously in person. Men's basketball, including women's volleyball, soccer, and cross country. They have been in 4 of the last 5 NCAA tournaments, and they beat Auburn in 2024. Ed, your thoughts?
I looked it up a little bit, and they've had some great success, like you mentioned. 4 out of the last 5 NCAA tournaments. Their coach is Bryce Drew, best known in 1998 when he played for Valparaiso, beating a buzzer beater to beat third-seeded Ole Miss. Played for his dad, Homer Drew, succeeded him at Valparaiso as the head coach there. They've lost a lot of roster turnover from last year. They mentioned it's going to be a big challenge for Coach Drew, but I think just his resume and his pedigree, I think it's a definite step. The competition ratcheted up. If you Sundance Wicks, Eric Olin, the coaches in the conference, Leon Rice, Joe Scott, Jared Calhoun, Brian Dutcher,
Steve Albert.
That's gonna up their game, man, because this guy's a good coach. He knows how to coach. He's had success there. I'm excited. I wasn't really thinking about Grand Canyon joining the conference until next year. But when I read it, I'm like, and I did a little research. I've heard of him, of course. And Coach Drew is a heck of a coach. And, Lobo fans were a little, I know I was, lamenting the teams that are leaving. But I think this gives us a little something to look forward to. They're going to be around for a while. And it's going to definitely, as I mentioned, make the conference with a pedigree coach and a background like Coach Drew, it's going to make it better for sure.
I think one of the things is the arena, which is Globe Credit Union Arena. It's only about 7,000 seats, but they get amped in that arena. They do a bunch of different things pregame with the student section. If you've ever watched a GCU game, if you've ever even watched them in the WAC tournament, they show up. So it's, I think it's I don't know. I think it's an exciting move for the University of New Mexico. I just had a thought there, Ed, that I didn't send Scott the new link, but I did. I'm excited for GCU, and that means we can go there to see a game. Then that's a hop, skip, and a jump away. I think it adds another element with those schools leaving, like San Diego State, Boise, to the Pac 2.0. And I have to preface it, if you're new to the show tonight, I'm not speaking as a UNM alumni or even a UNM fan. If you know me, I'm objective. When I have to repeat myself a zillion times, when I think of the Pac-12, I think of USC in the Rose Bowl, and I think UCLA winning championships or Arizona deep in the tournament, not Utah State and Bronco Mendenhall. Just throwing that out there. Might go to Thunder Dan. Yes. Thunder Dan Marley was their first head coach.
Had some success there for a little while too, I believe.
Yeah, they weren't allowed to compete because they were making that jump to D1, but he had some success there. And then Bryce Drew is putting them on a completely different level. I'm going to go to John Romero, NMSU Aggies B-ball enjoyed beating regularly Grand Canyon in the WAC. Lobos will enjoy as well. I appreciate that there. All right. It looks like Scott Creagan has joined us. And he looks like he's in a vehicle, but we're going to have him anyway. Not like Ryan Berryman hasn't joined us in a car. All right. It's Scott Creagan coming up next. Make sure I've got this set up right. All right.
Can you hear me? Am I good?
Can you hear us?
Yes. I'm on
Perfect.
the Pit Press Live.
Yes, you are. Thank you for joining us. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Yeah, sorry. I've been running around like crazy, so I am joining you in the car, but I'll be at the house here in about 5 minutes. So
that is totally fine. What I wanted to do was give you a proper introduction. Just based on doing that for every other guest that we have on. Yeah. But he is a UNM football letterman, a Lobo Club leader. He's a 1995 graduate of UNM. He's the owner of Graphic Connection, New Mexico's largest custom screen printing company. But from outfitting NFL teams to supporting local schools, he's built business rooted in this community, creativity, and he's got a lot of Lobo pride. His name is Scott Creagan. Scott, how are you doing tonight again?
Great, guys. Thanks for having me on. Sorry I'm in my car, but I'm going to make this work.
Perfect. No, I'll start with the first question. You played at wow, can't talk tonight. You played at UNM from 1988 to 1992 under Mike Shepard and Dennis Francione for one season. Mike Shepard had some great offensive talent. Quarterbacks Jeremy Leach, College Football Hall of Famer, sent the Atlanta Falcons to the Super Bowl, Terrence Mathis. What are your recollections of Coach Shepard?
Well, I came from Southern California, and Coach Shepard and his staff came from Long Beach State, so their recruiting ties were in Orange County and LA. And my freshman year, our recruiting class was the #1 recruiting class in the WAC that year. We got Jeremy Leach was in there, and Jeremy was the LA City Player of the Year. Donald Livingston was the Long Beach City Player of the Year. So I think they pulled probably 15 players out of Orange County and LA. Coach Shepard was a very good offensive minded coach, and we did put up lots of numbers, but we never stopped anyone. That was probably our downfall. But bunch of great coaches here. I was telling Ed that the reason why I came here was the coach that recruited me here was Marvin Lewis, who was an NFL coach for 19 years for the Bengals. But Coach Shepard was a great guy, great coach. Never really could get over that hump. And, but he moved on after here, and he was an NFL coach for, probably another 10 or 15 years after that. But great coach and a great man.
That's very cool. You were recruited by Marvin Lewis. I'm a New York Football Giants fan, and I was alive and well, so he haunts me from a Super Bowl 24 years ago. Then he had, great success with the Bengals. During your time as a player here, UNM was still in the WAC. Tell us how competitive that conference was at that time.
I played against a bunch of guys. I played against Ty Detmer, who won the Heisman Trophy. Marshall Falk, who went on to be have a great Mohamed Iwalnibi from BYU was the Outland Trophy winner. I mean, we played good football in the WAC. I mean, we teams were going around and we beat the big conferences, and one year we beat Fresno State when I think they were 10-0 and ranked 12th in the country or 15th in the country, and so we had. We had a lot of we didn't have as much success. We played a lot of tight games. I don't know if you looked at the records at that time, but we would go and lose. We went down to Florida and lost 27-21, and we had the ball where Jeremy threw an interception. We actually had the ball at the 50-yard line. So we were tough, and the conference was good, and I got to play all over the country and play big time college football in New Mexico. It was great.
I have not seen a game in the Swamp, but I've been on UF's campus, and it was able to walk into the stadium. It was cool. This is about 15 years ago, but it's a different breed in the South. I think a big thing, the stink here is the attendance. What was the attendance like when you played at UNM?
We didn't have, and here in New Mexico, it's an interesting thing because I'm sure you guys talk about this, but we're one of the few states in the country that thinks that college sports revolves around college basketball, and it really doesn't. That's why we keep getting left out of all these conferences, because we're not investing in football, which we need to do, and the fans need to invest in football. But because basketball has been so successful, we sell at the pit all the time. So when I was there, we didn't have great attendance. And then Shepard got fired after my junior year, and we brought in Dennis Franchione, who just actually, I don't know if you guys knew this, but he just got inducted in the College Football Hall of Fame, or nominated for it, or he's going in. And Fran came in and really energized the city and with the first team, which is a group of boosters that we have, and got, I don't know if you remember this, Ed, I think you do, but that first game in '93, it was a sellout against BYU. And we lost the game, but that was the first time, the first game after I graduated, we sold the stadium out. So we could do it. It's just getting behind the team when we're, if you're 5-7 like we were last year. We actually had a good team and we upset, Washington State. We just need to get people out there.
Ed, I'm gonna chime in on one more question. Franchione had success, and then that '97 team, they won the Mountain Division. They got to the WAC title game. Did you kind of see, the fruitions of labor? I've used this word twice in last week. It's very odd, or that phrase. But were you shocked to see where Franchione got that team in the 4 or 5 years since he took over?
No, because I saw what we needed. What Shepard didn't have was, Franchione came in and brought in discipline, and he brought in toughness, and he, some of the players that he recruited, I like telling this story, but Ryan Cook, Brian Urlacher, and Hank Baskett, who Hank played in the Super Bowl. Ryan Cook was a second-round draft pick, and I don't need to tell you what Brian Urlacher did. I had more scholarship offers than all three of them together coming out of high school. And the reason why that had potential and he developed them. And I just don't think that the coaching staff before, with Shepard's group, I just don't think they did that. So I could see the writing on the wall, and when it happened, it didn't surprise me. We were beating Utah and BYU and had a lot of success, and fans were showing up. And then Tech Schramm was hired. I don't know if you guys know this story, but Tech Schramm was hired by TCU to recruit Fran to come down and coach at TCU, and they paid him a bunch of money, and everyone knows the story after that. He went to Alabama and Texas A&M. So, to answer your question, yes, I saw the writing on the wall. You could see how a program was being built and how it has to be built here.
I'm a big NFL history buff. I'm aware of not to talk ill of Hank Baskett because he's one of my favorite Lobos of all time, but that he was on that onside kick to start that second half against the Saints. I feel so bad for him.
I remember.
Ed, I'm throwing it over to you.
Scott, I do remember, when New Mexico beat Utah that year when Fran was here. Stoney Case, Winslow Oliver, Gavin Perlman, Carl Morgan. They had a really
Ed, I don't mean to
team.
interrupt you. We don't talk. My mom, and we don't. That's funny because I always say my mom loves college football. I don't always interrupt you. That's a name we haven't mentioned on here, is Winslow Oliver.
Yeah, Winslow Oliver was one heck of a player. And what I remember about that game, Scott, after the game, Lobo fans rushed the field. They rushed the field, took the goalpost down. One of my friends from Highland, the late William Love, was a big guy. He was on the field of security. He tried to stop him. He's 6'6", man. They just outdated. After a while, he's like, forget it. And that's a scene that we haven't seen much at University Stadium. We haven't seen that. But I do remember that. Scott, when you played here, you mentioned Jeremy Leach and the game against Florida in the Swamp. I remember listening here, actually in my old house, and to the legendary Mike Roberts, and you guys were right there. And that's when Emmett Smith, I think had 300 yards that day for Florida, if I remember right. I talked to your former teammate Nate Morris, the linebacker, and he said he got a couple pops at Emmett, man. But Emmett is Emmett, the all-time leading rusher in the NFL. So I think it's important to remember that Jeremy Leach was one heck of a quarterback. I liked him a lot, but there was just some things at the end of the game sometimes that they went Ryan. They did that day against Florida, but you gave them everything that they wanted. But I wanted to say, and I remember Coach Shepard well, Scott, there was talent on the defensive side of the football too, but it seemed like you said, and he was known for that, his defenses were sieves, but there was talent. You mentioned you were on the line. There was I think John Bell was on the line. There were some other guys too. Yep. What prevented the defense from putting it together?
It's a great question. I've had that asked before. I had a new I started here as a true freshman, and then my sophomore year I started at outside linebacker, and then I redshirted after starting for 2 years because we had a lot of players. But to answer your question, I had a new defensive coordinator every year I was here. And one of the stipulations when Franchione came here, because I was actually part of the committee as a player when Fran got interviewed, I was one of the 4 players that was on the committee. We wanted that he was going to bring someone that didn't use the stone. So what Fran did was Fran told his assistant coaches, look, I need you to give me a 3-year commitment, which they all did. They ran the same defense every year. When they needed to plug someone in, they would go recruit them. But every year I was here for the first 5 years, having a new defense that you ran was really hard to learn. And that's why I think Rocky had some success here, because Rocky ran the same defense every single year, and they just kept plugging in years and getting guys. I mean, I think Hank Baskett had 1 offer, and Ryan Urlacher had 2 offers in New Mexico State and here. They were kids that they could develop. I think they did a great job. Fran's group actually developed players better than Shepard's group did.
Scott, I think everybody knows you again, Graphic Connections, you're a big-time Lobo football booster. You're at all the games, and you've come on here and said we need to get out there and fill the stadium. You've been a Lobo booster for years and have served on the selection committee for some of the Lobo football head coaches. What did you think of the hiring of Jason Eck?
I did. Everyone asked me because I was on the Loxley committee, and I actually called Marvin Lewis and I asked him about Mike, and he says, Scott, if you guys get Loxley there, that's a coup for you guys. And and things sometimes they don't work out. Now and then he went to Alabama. So every coach that's been here, like even last year with Bronco, he didn't even have a winning record, and he's a hot commodity. And Utah State paid him a couple $1 million a year and gave him a 6-year contract. Here's the deal with Coach Eck. I will say this: I don't know how our team's going to be, but the one thing that he's doing that the previous coaches didn't do is he is out in the community. I went to the Sports Hall of Fame the other day with you being there, and great job, by the way, on that thing. You guys are awesome. And Coach Eck was there, and then we had a New Mexico Bowl golf tournament last week, and he didn't golf, but he showed up at the dinner. So he's doing everything in the community to get behind and support him, which is great. I think he's got a good offensive mind. This whole NIL thing, and I know we're not talking about that because we could talk about it for an hour, but I mean, it is crazy what's going on. And, like even with our basketball team, there's not a player left on our basketball team. So I think it's an advantage now for someone like Coach Eck, who's coming in and trying to put a new program together, because everyone else in the country's doing it too. Does that make sense? Like, I think everyone's rebuilding their team every year.
Right. And it's everyone's kind of like on level playing ground, although, some have more resources and finances. I'm the play-by-play voice at Western New Mexico, and it's hard for them to win there, man. That Lone Star Conference is no joke, and those Texas teams have way more resources. They do. That's just a fact. But, I've got to ask you this about Coach Long. His teams had a special blend, formidable defense with some local players, a ball control running offense, at times, and sometimes with Cole McCamey and Basket, they opened it up a little bit. With 2 backs, Dontrell Moore and Rodney Ferguson, who were from Roswell and Manzano, respectively, and the fans brought in. Now, I've got to ask you this, Scott, because I've thought about this a lot. I've watched Lobo football since 70, man. I remember when Rocky played, and I listened because I was just a kid, but I never would miss a game when Rocky had the wishbone. Why has, they've had pockets of success, but not many. They haven't had a winning season since Bob Davie was here. Why is that? And when Rocky was here, though, the fans we mentioned, 44,000 for New Mexico State, 38,000 for Rice, they brought in. Why has that been so hard to duplicate?
Oh, I mean, I think fans here, like I said, are fickle. I mean, when we moved it to Thursday night, I'm not making this up. I had people calling me that day asking me for tickets, and there was no tickets left. But we were 6-0, and they were 6-0, and it was nationally televised. I think, and you saw Lobo basketball a few years ago when we went through a couple down, seasons, and now you can't get tickets. So we're a very fickle fan base here, if that makes sense. If I could, and I don't want to rip on anyone but I got to tell you this, man. I'm from Southern California. I can move back there tomorrow if I wanted to. I love it here. I love Albuquerque. I love New Mexico. We're the 32nd largest city in the country. I mean, we should be filling up the football stadium, which it needs some upgrades, and we should be out there supporting. But when you have a new coach every year, I mean, we've had 3 coaches now in the last 3 years, and it's hard to get consistency. So Coach Ack, I will say this, and you've seen him out there, Ed, because you saw him at the dinner the other night. I mean, he's getting out there and going to everything. And so he's trying to engage the community. Trying to engage boosters. And we just need to get behind the program. And then, because I'm going to tell you something, here's our plan. And you could look this up. But in 5 years, the big television stuff's going to come up in 5 years for all the conferences again. And they did this on purpose. So in 2029, we just have to make sure, and I'm okay with this, that we're beating Air Force and UTEP and Wyoming, and we have championship teams in football and basketball, because what's going to happen is in 2029, there's going to be another shakeup. And what they're going to do is they're going to go, wow, Albuquerque's the 32nd largest, city in the country. And wow, look at their basketball program. They go to the NCAAs every year. And wow, their football team's going to bowl games and winning 8 and 9 games. Then the Big 12 or the Pac-12 or whatever they're going to be called by then they're going to come calling us. But we need to make sure for the next 5 years we kick some butt.
There's, of course, everyone knows the changes to the Mountain West Conference, the teams departing, going into Pac-12. Now, Grand Canyon's coming in to play basketball this year, which I think ups the conference with Bryce Drew. He's got a very good resume. Scott, there's some people that are upset about the Mountain West in the basketball side. But I got to ask you this. The changes, will that help New Mexico in football maybe be a little bit more competitive without having to worry about San Diego State, Boise State, Utah State? Well, does that help New Mexico get to the point where you said they're winning? Now, again, we don't want to play in a watered down and beat Sisters of the Poor. I wouldn't think it's going to be like that. Northern Illinois is coming in. They've got some good teams coming in. But does that help New Mexico competitively when these teams lose? And again, I'm thinking they're going to up their game, but does that help them with these teams leaving the football program?
It helps football a tremendous amount. I think the basketball program, and Pitino said this, I don't know if he said it publicly, but he didn't like the change of the conference, and that's one of the reasons why he left. I will say this. I know we're number 1 in NIL and football and basketball by far, and we're 1 or 2 in football. So in this new conference that we're in, my point to all the fans now, and I've been going around saying this, and your people on your podcast need to hear this. We need to really get behind the program for the next 5 years, because when the next shakeup comes, they will look at someone like us if we're supporting it, if we're selling out the stadium, and winning conference championships. Then I think everyone's hurt that we didn't get Colorado State is not better than New Mexico. I mean, we were just ranked 45th in the Learfield deal. The problem is, and everyone knows this, is basketball goes to the NCAAs. We have, I was watching ESPN the other night at a restaurant, and we had one of our girls win in the national championship in cross country. Our golf teams are good. We have great programs here and great coaches. But I'm going to just tell everyone out there that college football is not driven by baseball and basketball. It's driven by football. And that's why we got left out. So we need to get behind the program.
Absolutely. Jeff Grammer had a breakdown in the Journal a couple weeks ago. It's driven by football, always has been driven by football, and I think a Lobo long time football fans like myself want to see them get there. And hopefully, Coach Eck, again, he has the right attitude. We know that. Hopefully, the players he brings in, he can get them together and get some wins here. Scott, you mentioned too, college athletics changing like we've never seen it. What's your opinion of today's college athletic climate, the NIL, universities being able to pay athletes directly? Nothing like that was even mentioned when you played. And imagine how much money you would have made some money. Terrence Mathis would have made some money, right? Brian Urlacher. There's Eric Jack.
He wouldn't have been here. He would have.
No, that's right. Terrence wouldn't have been here either. Probably he wouldn't have been here either.
Yeah.
Glover Quinn. He mentioned that if you're good at UNM, they use it as a stepping stone and they move on. But what's your opinion of today's today's college athletic climate with all the changes that are going on?
Well, my scholarship check was like $800 a month, and I am very thankful. I have paid back my scholarship at UNM 50 times over, because that's what a good alum should do, is pay your university back for taking care of you. But what's going on right now is a mistake by all the adults for the last 20 years of not paying kids, and the Reggie Bush stories. And you remember the kids from Ohio State that were selling their jerseys and trying to get monies for their tattoos, and then they got suspended. And I mean, living off $800 a month, I'm not saying you couldn't do it, because I did it, but this is a problem, and I'm okay with the kids getting paid. I don't like the transfer portal. I think they should limit it to 1 or 2, because we're not having any consistency with kids staying in programs anymore. But I'm going to just tell you this, because I helped out our quarterback last year with a few of he had an injury he was fighting, and I was helping him out at my training facility. And when he told me what people were throwing around at him, I said, young man, you're 5'11". The odds of him going in the NFL are very slim. He's a really good college football player. I said, go make as much money as you can for as long as you can. And I don't know the exact number, but I know it was over $1 million. I mean, he's making over $1 million to play football at Utah, and all the kids on the team all get a truck, or I think they all get a car or something on top of it. So I'm okay with it, because I'm happy that these athletes are finally getting paid what they should get paid. I know it sounds greedy, but I never had a chance to sniff the NFL. I got to play against Emmitt Smith and Ty Detmer and those guys, but I'm going to say this, and I said this publicly when I got interviewed a couple months ago, but if New Mexico State, and I like New Mexico State except when we're playing them, if they would have came to me after my freshman year and offered me 10 grand, I would have been gone. I had no money. So I'm okay with kids getting paid. I'd like to see a cap of maybe 2 transfers. That's it.
Ed, he's my kind of guest, because he's shooting it straight. He sounds just like me, and I didn't even suit up for UNM. Scott, can I ask you about last year's team, and what were being that you're a football alumni at UNM? Can I ask what your takeaway was from the one and only year from Bronco Mendenhall?
I liked Bronco when he was here as an assistant coach. I liked what he brought in. If you know his history, and where he's from, I mean, he grew up 50 miles from Logan. He came in and he did what he said he was going to do, which was, we beat Washington State at home. We won. I am going to say this, but if the portal wasn't there, and I know for a fact that Utah State was trying to get him during the season. And if you watch that last Hawaii game, I don't know. There's stuff that goes on. Those guys are getting ready to sign bigger contracts and make more money. I didn't like how the season ended, if you know where I'm going with that quote I just said. I think that Hawaii game could have been won very easily, and I just don't think they were all into it. But Bronco did a good job. I mean, people are mad that he left, but if you had the opportunity for both of you guys to double your salary and go back home, I would help both of you guys pack.
No, I agree. I'm for it. I did not like, being that I'm a member of the media, I didn't like Bronco's demeanor towards the media. So that was my gripe. You mentioned Devin Dampier, and Scott, I might shoot you an email after the show for something I'm writing. But Devin, that single and I'm not dissing Stoney Case. I'm not dissing Donovan Portery. Casey Kelly was one of my favorite quarterbacks. How good of a season did Devin have last year?
He literally probably won 3 of the games by himself. And I've been here. I played with Jeremy. Jeremy was in my recruiting class. I played with Stoney Case. Stoney Case was in the NFL for 3 or 4 years. I saw Sellers and all the Cole McCamey is one of my good friends. He was an awesome quarterback here. I have never seen, and I've been here since 1988. And I saw Dontrell played, and I played with Winslow, and I was on the team with Terrence, and Terrence played in the Super Bowl. I have never seen a Lobo football player take over a game like that kid did.
I appreciate that answer. We've had Terrence on. We've had Cole McCamey on. I've had the pleasure of giving him a hard time, being that he's from Artesia and I'm a St. Pius alum. But I thought Devin was special last year. I know you've already kind of touched on Jason Eck. I'm enthusiastic and rejuvenated as a alumni, and I don't often try to portray myself as a fan on here. Being, I covered the Mike Loxley years at the Tilly Lobo and saw Rocky Long get pushed out. But what are you, the schedule? I don't think, God, can't talk tonight. I don't think the schedule is favorable. Jason Eck, the word out there is he does less. He does more with less. What's your forecast for 2025 for Jason Eck and the UNM football team?
So I haven't done it, but if you guys want to do it with me, we could do it off air. But I used to go sit in Rocky Long's office probably 2-3 weeks before the season would start. And I'd pull the schedule out and I'd circle all the games I thought we'd win. And he'd sit there and go, how do you think we're going to go to he was very candid with me. He goes, that Fresno State game is going to be tough because they have these kids coming back and their whole line. But I would circle all the games and I'd pick as many as I thought we could win. I started doing it the other day, and the 3 of us could do it, and then we'll put it on a Post-it note and we'll put it at Ed's desk and we'll look at it at the end of the season and see where we come up. But it's a tough schedule. It sometimes, playing Michigan and UCLA in the same season is tough. We could use the money a little bit here. I'm hoping that the new administration doesn't make us do those money games, maybe 1 every year, but not 2. But I've circled, I'm not going to say it on air, but I've circled 4 or 5 games this year. And if we could get lucky and pull one out, like we do every year, who knows, they might get to 6 games. It's going to be hard, but I definitely see 4 or 5 games that we should win this year.
Again, I think he gets the thing at Idaho. I'm repeating myself. He got more out of less. Well, I'm writing something and I'm not going to delve into it, Scott. I'm looking at kind of listing the top 25 players from the turn of the century, from the year 2000. To throw it out there, maybe 3 couple players that you think, I was coming up with a list. I asked Ned James. I asked Ben Wysong. I asked a gentleman by the name of Alfredo Moreno, who Alfredo's the man. And now that I've got you on, and I might shoot you over an email to see if you can give me a list and quote you on it. But if you had to pick a couple guys since the turn of the century, I know the names are easy, but who would you have to pick?
Well, the 2000 here. I think those were the Hank basket times, right? I think Hank was here. I really liked the 2 wide receivers we had. It was Brown, and is that before 2000? Remember the Brown kid and the number 4?
Yeah, Marcus Smart and Travis Brown, right?
Yeah, Marcus Smith, Travis Smith, and what'd you say first,
Yeah.
Ryan?
What years were those guys?
They were mid to late 2000s. They were on the 2007 team.
Okay, yeah. So like the guys around, I really like those teams because I remember our offensive line, like, gosh, who was number 76, the big old lineman that played for the Rams? I mean, just we had big offensive linemen. We had, Chris Shelton blocking for people. I mean, we had, as far, I would have to sit down and think about all the different guys, but I really like the teams that were like, when Rocky was, when we were beating, BYU on the road, and a lot of those times when we had real tough players and they were gritty. But I will give you, I will go through my list, and I will definitely send it to both of you guys who my top 20, who my 25 guys were. And I'll bet you, because I know how you guys are, I bet you 20 of them will be the same as your 20.
Yeah.
Five of them,
Yeah, well-
five of them might be a dark horse, but I bet you 20 of them are right on.
No, I appreciate that. Ed, do you have anything else for Scott Creagan?
Yeah, Scott, one last question. You've been around, running Graphic Connections for a very long time.
Yeah.
You've worked with, friends of mine, Jay Hill, Tom Gallagher, Mark Baca, Kim McCall. Just tell us a little bit about where Graphic Connections is today.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. Thanks for the plug. I can't believe this, man. We've been in business for 30 years now. And it's been a good ride. We're still going strong, still do a lot for UNM. We've done a lot for the Isotopes over the years. I'm doing a lot for New Mexico United right now. And we've done some cool deals that, I don't know if a lot of people know, but, we ran the Cubs spring training facility over in Arizona for 5 years, and we were the number one. This is before the Cubs won the World Series, but we were the number one Major League Baseball team in merchandise, and we were a little company out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I've done the Balloon Fiesta, and we've done the NMAA. We've had a good run, and I do want to say this because my kids were both born here. My son's a graduate of UNM, and he had to go down to that. He had to go get his master's degree from that junior college down in Las Cruces called New Mexico State. That was a joke. You guys are supposed to laugh.
No, I was laughing.
I got you.
Got it.
But my daughter's at UNM. I'm a Lobo. UNM brought me here. It's changed my life, and I got to do something that I never in a million years thought I would do, was play major college football, and now I'm here, and I love it here. And when you grow up here, you don't appreciate New Mexico as much as someone that. Everyone always asks why I don't go back to Southern California, and it's because, 30 years later, I could get on the phone with you guys, and I'm still a Lobo football player, and it's a special place, and it's a special place for me because I got to go to school here, and now I get to do all the work for them, which is it's an honor to do all the work for the Lobos. But yeah, we've been going 30 years now, Ed, and it's been a good run, and I'm still going, and that's Graphic Connection.
Yeah.
Ed, anything else?
No, Scott. Just again, glad I ran into you at the New Mexico Sports Hall of Fame. We sure appreciate you joining us. And when I asked you, you said you watch a lot, so we appreciate the sport.
Right on, guys. Well, I'll get you my list of what the top 25 are, and I'll get you my list of what games we're going to win, and then we'll compare them, and I'll treat for lunch. So thanks for having me on.
Scott, I'll throw this out there. If you ever want to join us again throughout the year, we have Ben Wysong and Ned James, so I'll add a third to the list. If you ever want to come on and talk Lobo football or basketball or baseball or any UNM athletics throughout the year, please, you're always welcome on.
Awesome. Well, thank you, guys. Great job. I appreciate you guys doing this.
All
Thanks,
right, that's Scott Creagan. Scott, appreciate you joining us. He is a former UNM football player. I think probably known more for Graphic Connection. But Ned, he was a pleasure to talk to. He was very candid, which I love.
He was, and he's been around. He loves. Think about it. He said, he's from California. He could move back. He loves New Mexico. He loves the Lobos. He's a big supporter. And a big supporter of the Lobo football program, and hopefully we'll see things turn around. We know not only does the attendance need to ramp up, you we talked to Jeff Symbieta last summer at the Mountain West Conference when we went there to media day, and he mentioned the facility needing some upgrades, and he runs the New Mexico Bowl, or New Mexico is led a bowl. He would know. Coach Fernando Lobo said that they're they got $10 million, I think, from the legislature, I think, which might pay. We joked about that, might pay for one gate, and we're being facetious, but the facility needs some work. There's no doubt about it, and hopefully the product on the field improves enough. And he's right about Lobo fans being fickle. I think the Lobo football fans are some of the most fickle people I've, and I'm a diehard. I'm one of the few. So I'm not saying I'm a perfect fan. I get mad too. I want them to win. That's why I asked him that question. Why has it been so hard to duplicate that formula that Rocky had here? And hopefully better times around the corner for Lobo football. I know a lot of people would want to see them win.
I've come on this show, and Eric and I were talking about it this day, since Paul Krebs is no longer here. Rocky didn't resign. They fired him, and that was a cover-up. I mean, that is known between a lot, I think, of boosters, a lot, some people around town, but I've, pushed that narrative, being that I was around the program. I worked at the Daily Lobo when he got fired. I wasn't at the press conference when he said those damn fans. I think there was part of me that I wanted Rocky gone. And then who sings that song, that monster ballad? You don't know what you've got till you don't know what you've got until it's gone. I'm going to butcher that. Being that I
know the song, I just don't know who sings it. Yeah, I know.
Being that I love heavy metal, perfect radio here. You don't know what you've got. What you've got till it's gone. Cinderella. Okay, that was probably the worst moment of the night. When we come back, take a quick commercial break. Brennan Williams from my terrible stand-up comedy hour. Brennan Williams from coming in out of the bullpen today. I appreciate him, and he's probably going to be a regular. Daryl Trujillo at Ronnie Chavez in the era. Yes. I don't miss. Maybe I'm missing. I'll come back and read that afterwards. I called him Darian Williams. Jesus, I'm so sorry. Brennan Williams from Go Low. Why do I host the show and own this company? Brennan Williams from Go Lopes Radio will join us after the fact. We'll talk about GCU basketball. Ed, Neff's not on tonight. You know how we feel about mid-major basketball.
Oh yeah, I know.
A lot of money on it. So when we come back, Brennan Williams from Go Lopes Radio. I can't wait to see a game there. And I've mentioned it on the show how that arena is bumping. So we'll be right back. My name is Ryan Tamori, Ed Nunez. This is the Pit Press Live.
tight. It's time again for the ride of your life at Capital Ford. And the ride of your life begins now with employee pricing for everyone on new Fords. You pay what Ford employees pay. Employee pricing means buy a new 2025 Ford F-150 for just $599 a month. Or buy a new 2025 Ford Escape plug-in hybrid, only $499 a month during our Ride of Your Life event at Capital Ford in Santa Fe.
I'll hit you with the triple A to start this segment. All right. My name's Ryan. Don't even know my name. My name is Ryan Tamori. Ed Nunez joining us. And now we go to our next guest, which I'm really excited to have. You know, if you hadn't heard the news today, GCU has now joined the Mountain West Conference a year early. And what better way to go to somebody who knows the team and the school? He is the owner of Go Lopes Radio. He covers all things Grand Canyon University men's basketball. I'm sorry I referred to you as a basketball player for the New Jersey Nets about 15 years ago. Brennan Williams. Brennan, how are you doing tonight? Thank you for joining us on such short notice today.
Of course. Yeah, I think a really exciting day across the board. And a massive thank you for having me on the program. You know, I've looked at everything online today, and I wouldn't say every team has had and fan base has had open arms in what should be a great day today. We get into that a little bit later, but I think a really exciting day for GCU, their fans, and, you know, in my opinion, mid-major basketball. Ryan, you were talking about how special it is. I think a really awesome day for mid-major basketball as well. So
I will start here, though, because I see the Mariners pennant in the background. What do you think about Cal Raleigh's season?
Man, you know what? It's incredible. And, you know, I've got a group of buddies I talk about the Mariners with day in and day out. And I would call myself a little bit of a pessimist. I'm very open in that because of all the torture I've gone through for the past, 24 years now since the 01 season. So literally most of my life. So, but man, it's exciting. And, just as I'm like all the way ready to dive into baseball, it's like this news happens. And so, exciting time though. Cal Raleigh's incredible. And the average is up. It's not just the power, it's the average is up. And it's truly incredible.
He's a danger at the plate at any time this year. Our friend, who's kind of our betting expert and knows everything about every MLB prospect and every college basketball player, my buddy and friend Jacob Neff, he's not on the night. Diehard Seattle Mariners fan.
Okay, we love that.
Yeah, his dad grew up. So I'm a diehard Mets fan. Tony Gwynn is my favorite player.
Okay.
So yeah, so I just like baseball in general, and I found some shirts and I bought them online. I'm not a Braves fan, but I just happened to find this and I love it.
That's all right.
But I'm a de facto Mariners fan because of my friend Jake. So I am pulling for them. And when they beat Toronto, what was it, 2-3 years ago, to win that first playoff series, it was very cool. Now,
nothing like it.
No, there's nothing like there's nothing like it. And people, Albuquerque is LA East, so I was getting a lot of shit from Dodger fans last year, and I'm like, you don't understand. They weren't supposed to be here, and they beat Philadelphia along the way. So I don't care. Anyway, we will go. It's very cool you're a Mariners fan. Switching, we don't want to bore I don't think we want to bore our listeners and
for another day.
Viewership. Yeah, it's another day topic with the Mets rally. By the way, the Mets scored 4 runs in the 8th tonight to come back and beat the Orioles in Baltimore. Anyway, Brennan, what do you think about GCU's initial move to the Mountain West and what it says about the university's long-term ambitions?
Yeah, well, I think there was a lot of relief today. This is a different move than I guess any other move across the country because GCU had already formally left the WAC. So if this didn't happen, who kind of knows what would have happened? But this is a really big day. I love mid-major college basketball. Obviously, been following the Lopes, I've spent a little bit of time in Mountain West. I think it's a perfect marriage. And I think what it says is that GCU, and this is throughout their whole, a group came in the late 2000s and bought GCU, took it over, and they've just invested a lot. They've been willing to take risks, and a lot of those have paid off, and they've been willing to do things a little bit differently. And I think this is one of those risks and their bet on themselves sort of moments. They think they can compete in the Mountain West. They think they can win multiple tournament games. And to do that, you have to be in a good conference like the Mountain West. Unfortunately, the WAC was kind of falling apart, and they were kind of the belle of the ball over there. But this is a massive move for the university, for athletics. They take their other sports, their Olympic sports, very seriously as well. But specifically when it comes to men's basketball, this is a massive move. They built the roster accordingly. I'm sure we're going to want to talk about that a little bit, where they are going to be ready to hit the ground running. And I think it's a really exciting day as well, I think, for the fan base to kind of take this thing to the next level as well. It's going to take, not just the school. They've done the investing. The coaching staff's done a great job. And now, the fans, we really got to pour into this thing and kind of take responsibility and invest. So a really exciting day.
Brennan, I think when I read that today, and Bryce Drew's resume speaks for itself. The game winner against Valparaiso, playing for his dad, Homer, taking over at Valparaiso, 4 or 5 NCAA tournament appearances well at Grand Canyon. That ramps things up as far as coaching competition in the Mountain West and what's going to be left of it from this year, after this season. You got the teams exiting. But I think this whets the appetite here for Lobo fans. It did for me. When I saw that, I'm like, hey, Coach Drew and, the Lobos play some very good basketball. So I think it's going to give us an early look at, they were supposed to come in next season. But with these teams leaving, it gives us a look like, hey, this is what's going to be here for, seasons after. And again, with his resume, you've got to be impressed by that. But I did want to ask you, what challenges do you foresee in maintaining the Lobos culture while adapting to a new conference ecosystem? Yeah. What challenges do you see there?
I think the first thing you look at is just how different it's going to be this year. And I just wrote about this in my latest column, but just talking about in the Mountain West versus the WAC, everything is going to be bigger. There was a time last year during conference play, the team was kind of figuring some stuff out. And this was Bryce Drew talking about it in press conferences. So this wasn't even my opinion, but they're figuring some stuff out, just camaraderie and getting these things on the fly. And the WAC at the end of the day, I think I went over the Ken Palm, was about average 220th in the nation out of 351 if you take out GCU. So, they're figuring these things out on the road in venues that maybe didn't have a lot of people, no crazy fans, no crazy environments. And I think the first thing you think about is if you go into the Pit, if you are going into Colorado State, if you're going into, that Utah State environment, and some of those things you're kind of figuring out on the fly, that's going to be a lot different, right, than going to, no offense, but like a Utah Tech, right, with a few hundred people in the stands. They are going to have to be ready to go. Everyone has to deal with this nowadays, right, with the transfer portal, rebuilding a team, getting guys to play together. So there is an element where you're going to have to figure this out on the fly anyways and get these guys to gel. I think that's going to be the biggest challenge, because you're not going to be able to figure it out in very safe environments. And by the way, if you have that New Mexico game on Thursday, let's say, and it doesn't go great, well, you're getting on the plane and, you're going to like a Colorado State or even a UNLV. And so you got to turn right back around and you have another tough game. There's not a lot of nights off in the Mountain West. So I think that will honestly, to me, is going to be the biggest adjustment is, can Bryce get these guys mostly a retooled roster, similar to you guys as well, figuring that stuff out on the fly. But there's going to have to be a baseline of these guys being ready to play together, because, man, conference play is going to be tough, a lot of tough environments and a lot of really, really good teams.
You know what? With Bryce Drew's resume, though, again, playing for his dad, he's built for moments like this. I think, you look at his resume and, yeah, it's a challenge, sure. But one, I'm sure he'll embrace. He's not the kind of guy that, he's prepared, right? He's prepared for these kind of moments, and it happened a little sooner. So I bet he's really looking forward to it. From a basketball standpoint, how does Grand Canyon stack up against the top-tier Mountain West programs like San Diego State, New Mexico, Boise State, Utah State? How do they stack up against that?
Yeah, well, I mean, some teams brought back some really good stuff in the Mountain West. There was kind of this weird period where it maybe looked like Mountain West might be having, quote, a down year. Obviously, there was that period before you guys hired Olin. Some of the guys from San Diego State are in the portal. Obviously, Colorado State has to do a little rebuilding. And then all of a sudden, it felt like in I don't know, 10 days or 2 weeks, Boise State retooled. It just went from, oh my gosh, San Diego State's getting their guys back. New Mexico brings in Olin, and all of a sudden, all these teams look really, really good. And so I think they've done a really good job building the roster. I think it's the right mix of guys. It's so tough to build a roster nowadays with where things are at. I think what they've done is they went and they got guys that are proven. Guys like Nana Owusu-Anane who have done it. You know what you're getting. Guys like Brian Moore, who's out of Norfolk, the point guard, mid-major player of the year last year. But they've kind of gotten some guys that have to also prove it a little bit. You look at a guy like Dusty Stromer. He was a top, 50, I think 60 recruit out of Southern California. Played at a massive high school there, goes to Gonzaga. And things didn't really work out for him. A ton of talent. So he's coming in like, hey, I gotta prove it a little bit. So I think you just have this right balance. We've also, I think kind of the first real time under Bryce have gone into the international player pool. So there's kind of some odd cards there. I know you guys have brought in, you guys have been reporting on it, some international players as well. But they bring in a big guy from Turkey, F.A. Demirel, 7-footer. I mean, he moves like a point guard, it looks like, in the highlight videos. We'll see kind of how it translates. And then they actually just got a guy, Evan Boudor, who I'm going to keep having pronunciations with that, out of France. He's actually playing for the U20 team in France. He's a kind of a smaller, kind of disruptive guard they brought in. Again, two guys who kind of going to see what they look like. How is it going to translate? We know that is a tough thing to do if you're coming from overseas to playing college basketball. But they've just kind of built this roster the right way. And yeah, like you guys said, Bryce Drew, he's been able to, hey, this is how he wants to play. But he's also been willing in his time here at GCU to kind of adapt a little bit to the roster and do what's needed. So yeah, hey guys, you're going to have to defend. If you don't want to defend, I'm really sorry. You're going to have to go over here. I'm going to just play the guys who are going to defend. One season, 22-23, they just didn't have that personnel. And the last 2 weeks, there's a lot of shooting on the team. He just leaned into it and said, let's just start shooting threes. They make their run as a 5 seed in the WAC tournament and win it. So I think there is a baseline of how Bryce Drew wants to play, but he's also shown through his time, hey, I'm willing to adapt on the fly to kind of what I bring in with the roster and things that these guys do really well. So again, it's hard to kind of handicap it all because I feel like there's so many unknowns right now, but I think that just kind of is the thing that gets you really, really excited to get this season underway and shoot where, it's almost college football season. And then just like that, it'll be college basketball season. So I think we're really, really excited to start seeing some, and you know what, I think the last thing on this is, just things like billable hours and realignment. Let's throw the ball up in the air. Let's roll the ball out. Come on, guys. I just don't. I know you guys have been in the middle of having to deal with this as well, but I think I don't want to see any more articles or statements being put out or this or that. It's kind of like, let's roll the balls out and let's play some basketball, because I think that's what I'm really missing right now. I don't want to see any more of this online drama. So that's kind of my soapbox. So I'll hop off for now. Sorry,
Ryan.
No, you're good. I feel you there. It's Ed's son that joins us. Nick is I call him Steven Seagal lawman, but he's a lawyer. And he's been the one kind of on the forefront of writing stuff for us. And it's helpful to have somebody who is an attorney. So it's helpful because a lot of it, goes over my head. And my business partner, I think, irks every time I say that, but it's true. And I do read up on it. I'm no longer, I haven't been an ESPN.com guy for a long time. I had freelance position in CBS Sports in New York. Before I did that, I read CBS. I read The Athletic daily, but it's not, to me, for the fact that there is an NFL preseason game this month, because of the way the calendar falls. Like, we're I think less than 50 days away from college football. Like that, I feel your sentiment there. So don't sweat that. And maybe Cal Raleigh will continue to home run every day. But how does GCU's identity shift with this move? They went from a WAC contender, and now they're a Mountain West newcomer. Look, they upset oh goodness, who did they upset? It wasn't Auburn. It was Yale that upset. Anyway, it was last year that they beat them. But you know, I know the first round didn't go as planned this year against Maryland, but you know, they go from a WAC contender to a Mountain West newcomer. How does that identity shift?
Well, I'll tell you this right now. It is, you know, if there's celebration, this is a massive day, and that, you know, that celebration, you know, should be had. But the other thing I can tell you is that there's not going to be any like, oh, we're just thankful to get in a year early and we'll just kind of have some fun and go on some road trips and this will be a great time. The way GCU operates, President Mueller, Jamie Boggs, the AD, that's not how they operate. Their expectation is that they are going to be involved in the Mountain West this year, and they're going to be a contender, and they're going to, you know, try to win the Mountain West and make the tournament that way. So I think the expectations are going to stand. You know, we'll see kind of what they do with this non-conference schedule. It looks a little bit better than last year, so I think they can kind of start to maybe build some confidence, get some good tests. I thought they maybe lacked that last season, didn't have a lot of good tests, and then I thought when that Maryland game came around in the tournament, they just were not ready for the physicality and the size. And so I think that's one thing that stands out the Mountain West, how to compete in the Mountain West. You have to have size and you have to have different ways you can play. You can't just play one way, and you can't have guys with massive glaring weaknesses. And that starts the second your game ends in the spring. Unfortunately, that's how this stuff works now, right? With recruiting and getting the talent and building your roster. I think they've done a really, really good job. Very versatile. We talked about some of the size with a guy like F.A. Demerol. Got a guy, Dennis Evans, who literally, he reminds me so much of JaVale McGee. I mean, he is massive,
Wow.
7'2". And he was a top 20 recruit out of Southern California, went to Louisville, had some injury issues. We'll kind of see how that works out. So they've got a lot of the size. They've got some different sort of looks they can throw at the forward spot with a guy like Nana Owusu-Anane, really smart player out of Brown, who is coming off a torn labrum, didn't play at all last season, but opportunity to add to his game. And then they've kind of just got some offensive firepower, again, like I said, with a guy like Brian Moore, some returners, Mekhi Williams, Caleb Shaw. So they've got all these different options, and I think they've got the size and the talent to compete in the Mountain West. And I say that, you know, unbiased and in a very serious manner. This roster is really, really good. Again, it's going to come down to how do these things all fit? Do they complement each other? And can Bryce Drew once again kind of stir that drink in, you know, unprecedented territory? He comes in, you know, Ed, you mentioned it, he comes in after COVID, which, you know, I think if he was doing TV, why not keep doing TV? It's during COVID in this kind of weird time. We don't know how things are going to work. He comes in, takes the job, and kind of goes and starts doing really well. You know, he obviously brings in a guy like Ash Mickar, who's a really good player for the Lopes, but goes to the NCAA tournament the first year after COVID. And so he's been able to kind of navigate these, I guess, tough, unique scenarios, all the transfer rules changing, all these things changing around him, and he's been able to deliver. So we'll see. Obviously, all credit to Jamie Boggs on the move today, making that happen, President Mueller. But, you know, Bryce has also been able to build a roster, and I think they're ready, like I said, to not just hang out and maybe have a good time in the Mountain West. And then when that V2 of the Mountain West happens in 26, then we'll try to win this thing. Their goal is to win this thing right away and be involved and make the NCAA tournament and then win multiple NCAA tournament games. Their expectations are not going to change.
Does it resonate that you're now in a league today that you don't necessarily need to win it in March for that auto bid? You could garner an at-large. Does that kind of, for the year, is there a sense among you or GCU alumni and fans, is that a cool thing now?
You know, I don't think it's hit quite yet. I think there was, amongst the fan base, there was a lot of worry on where is GCU going to play. All of a sudden this morning, kind of out of nowhere, amidst this mediation, the announcement comes out. So I don't think there's been a lot of time to maybe think about that. Listen, I'm a little bit of a sicko, so I've obviously thought about what that looks like and sizing them up against other teams. And I watched a lot of Mountain West last year, went to all the Mountain West tournament. It's high-level basketball. You win enough. Yes, you have an opportunity to make it. And every game, that means every game matters. And we don't just have to wait until March. You know, it's not just 3 games in March or 4 games in March, as it has been in the past. It's, hey, this non-conference game in December, like these are massive games. You know, we've got to, and the other part of that is you have to schedule good games now because that is an option. You can make the tournament without the NCAA tournament, without winning your conference tournament. So that's going to be on GCU to also schedule well and play really good teams. And so again, we'll see how that kind of goes. But I think as a fan base, probably haven't thought about it a ton. But it's going to be a massive change. Like I said, everything's going to be bigger. These venues, the fans. I mean, I was at Mountain West, and we had me and my friends with someone we knew within the Mountain West or the Lobos program. So we were going to all the New Mexico games the last 2 years in Vegas. Obviously, really fun years to attend those Mountain West games. Man, it is intoxicating. And I'll tell you guys, I just love college basketball. I sat there for those games and was literally speechless. Just the way the fans engage, they're into it every single possession. And that's what you got to do from a fan perspective to support your team. You have to invest. You have to spend the money. That's the other thing about this now. Merchandise, those things. That's necessary to succeed and have success in this era.
The Lopes have quite a fan base too. So you mentioning Grand Canyon, having to visit Boise State and San Diego State. In the Pit, I've watched Lobo basketball there since 70, and the Pit is legendary. But Grand Canyon has, I think it's important to note that New Mexico has to go there too, and so does Utah State, San Diego State, Wyoming. But I got to ask you this: we mentioned some of the coaches in the Mountain West: Eric Olin, Leon Rice, Joe Scott, Jared Calhoun, Brian Dutcher, and a guy that I think has the greatest name in college basketball, Sundance Wicks at Wyoming. How excited are you to see Coach Drew match wits and make his tactical adjustments? He's a darn good coach, man. There's no doubt about it. How excited are you to see him coach against some of these guys in the Mountain West?
Yeah, I think if, obviously I've got a role as a media member, but as someone who, man, just freaking loves the sport, man, this is as good as it gets. Like, these are the games you want to watch. And like you guys said, we don't have to wait till that 1 week in March to kind of see the chess moves happen, right? I'm really excited. I can't wait to see this. You guys mentioned the Pit, some of those venues and the coaches. I think one thing that gets me really excited, one thing that wasn't great about the WAC, a lot of the teams were in kind of little towns, tough to travel to, not easy to get to. I look at this Mountain West, the short term and then the long term, but just looking at this year, I could see, really, really good games and environments because fans are able to more easily travel for GCU. And look, I look at a game at GCU Arena. How many New Mexico fans live in Phoenix? Phoenix is the third or fourth biggest city. That place is going to be packed with New Mexico fans. Like, these environments are going to be really, really good. If you're someone who just loves basketball, if you're a GCU fan, you better already have your season tickets because it's going to be a tough ticket to get. It's going to be really, really hard. These other opposing fans are going to be coming in. You mentioned Utah State, San Diego State. They've got great staffs. They've got great athletic programs that are investing in it. They've got really, really good fans that are going to show up and show out. So it's also a message to Lopes fans. Again, hey, we've got to step up and meet this moment. And every game, it's got to be sold out. It's got to be loud. You've got to make it as tough as possible because when GCU goes on the road, that's what they're going to get. They're going to go to the Pit. They're going to treat it. And we've already seen from some of the other schools that are leaving, some of those Pac-5 schools, they do not seem very stoked. Their fans are not very happy about this announcement today. Those environments are probably going to be crazy if they go to San Diego State, if they go to Boise State, Utah State, some of those other places where they are leaving. And then on top of that, yeah, you get the Pit and other places and really good coaches, really good talent. You mix that all up and man, it's going to be, a heck of a conference season. Obviously some really good non-con games before we get there. But man, looking forward to conference season. These games are going to be really, really good and full of energy, night in and night out.
No doubt.
My next question is, I think, is GCU, isn't it like the biggest school in the forgive me how I'm asking this, and I didn't do my research, so I'm
happy to explain all this.
Yeah. So I think a majority of it's online. We get the advertisements here, and I think nationally. And I think the endowment is well over, the student population is like well over 100,000. How many students is there's the UNM education and then there's the St. Pius education. Ed can't talk. How many students are physically on campus, like undergrad?
Yeah, so they do have a unique setup, and that comes from the leadership group they have. So if you guys are familiar with University of Phoenix, the group that kind of jump-started University of Phoenix back in the day, President Mueller and his team, they came over from University of Phoenix to GCU. So they brought that kind of online mindset and infrastructure, those ideas, and brought it to a physical campus. And so they do have a large online presence. I think it's about 100,000 students, not just across the nation, but across the world at different levels, undergraduate and then master's and doctorate programs. So that's they have that kind of flourishing online business, a model they've proven to be really, really good at. Obviously, at University of Phoenix and now at GCU had a ton of success in doing that. When it comes to on campus, just to give you guys an idea, I was there in 2012 to 2016. When I was there in 2012, I think there was about 25, to 3,200. Would you maybe consider some, some commuters coming in? Maybe campus is 3,500, on a busy school day. They've got, I believe, anywhere from 23 to 25,000 on campus now. So a ton of growth. They've obviously had to build into that growth, dorms, food and beverage, all that sort of stuff. But it's also a brand new campus, so a lot of these older schools, they've got kind of the older dorms, older setups. This is all kind of a brand new campus. They've invested a ton, but yeah, they've got about 20, I wouldn't know the exact, somewhere from 23 to 25,000, obviously fluctuates each year, but that's just to give you an idea of the amount of growth they've had, the amount of investment they've made, where when I started in 2012, I think, anywhere from 2,500 to like maybe 3,250 or 3,500 when you include commuters.
I would imagine now that you have that many students, is football being talked about?
I think this is what's interesting because, GCU, they've been so committed to the things they do and the things they do well. They invest, and football's tough because it's really hard to get into. There's obviously, nowadays there's so much to build into that. Obviously a stadium, the scholarships, obviously it would now take a massive portion of the NIL. Obviously there's the benefits, the revenue that comes with football. That's really massive. And then at the end of the day, right, there's a pageantry with football that you just can't get anywhere else. I'm a massive college football fan as well. So I totally get that. That's pageantry. I love college basketball. It's awesome. It's just different. And you kind of can't get that with anything else. But I think what makes GCU so great is how focused and dialed they are on what they want to do and who they want to be. They are committed to being a great men's basketball program, obviously first and foremost. And I think that's what was really appealing to the Mountain West. They're not coming in and, we're kind of tossing around football and maybe sometimes down the road we might want to this or that. They're coming into the Mountain West with full intentions of being the top men's basketball program without a doubt. They've had incredible success in their other Olympic sports, women's basketball, softball's been great, and they're going to continue to invest in those as well. And so I think there's, I guess maybe the term is self-awareness with who they are and what they want to be and what they want to do. And it's men's basketball. And I think externally, from a fan and kind of outside looking in, obviously they're internally going to say, we want to be best at every sport across the board. They're going to be measured externally by the success of their men's basketball program. That's going to be their moneymaker. That's going to be where the eyeballs are at. Obviously, there's some serious money in that. That's just the reality. And so I think at the end of the day, they're going to be measured externally by the success of their men's basketball program. They've had a lot of success. This is a massive transition. Everything's going to be different. The stakes are really going to be heightened. And I guess, we're going to see, but I think it's really, really exciting time. And I think if you're a GCU fan, they're committed to that, and where they're going, how to support, and kind of how to get involved, if that makes sense. The direction they're going in. They're very clear on it. And so I would say all that to answer your question. I don't see football anywhere in the future anytime soon. But I wouldn't say no to anything because, the Mountain West, this is crazy to be announced today and get a year alongside all these great Mountain West programs that have had a ton of success, NBA players that, just had NBA guys drafted. And so, who would have thought that might have been a thing? I don't know. So, you can never say never, but I wouldn't foresee football in the future for GCU anytime soon.
I know that ASU's right down the road, but, GCU's in Phoenix. How much of an advantage is that?
Yeah, it's massive. Phoenix is really, I mentioned I started school in 2012, and Phoenix was still, you could say, a little sleepy almost. It's kind of this desert town, and everything was a little cheaper, and you could drive downtown and not a lot's going on. And that is not the case anymore. It is massive. Like I said, I think third, fourth, maybe fifth biggest city in the nation. People continue to move here and flock here. Yes, it is hot in the summer and it is relentless and it does not stop, but people want to be here. Businesses are coming here. They want to be here. And I think there's a massive opportunity. I think GCU has in front of them. I think they've engaged it obviously pretty well. ASU is in Tempe, and you could say the word kind of being in their shadow. I don't know if that's the right term. I think a lot of that just comes from football. You guys obviously are very well aware. There's just a pageantry. There's an excitement. There's a following that comes with football that's just unlike anything else. There's just nothing like it. ASU's got football. That's just going to have bigger tentacles and have a bigger reach. But I think GCU has a really focused look on kind of the sort of people they want to partner with. And I think a lot of those people are in Phoenix. And so I think there's a massive opportunity that maybe they haven't even got to, engaging businesses, getting them, they've already very, very involved in the community with the work they do. Some of the stuff they've done even around the campus and, ministry work as a faith-based university. But I think there is a massive opportunity to continue to engage those companies in Phoenix. And, I think a lot of those companies in Phoenix that have the ability to, I don't want to say kind of match the vision, but maybe see the vision of GCU and what they've been able to accomplish and see what might be ahead for them. I think are going to get really excited about a partnership with GCU and specifically GCU men's basketball.
No, that makes sense. And I'm going back to football real quick, and I'm sorry. I'm being gathered being in Glendale. If the hypothetical would be ever happen, would they play at University of Phoenix Stadium?
That's a good question. I don't know. They've got a soccer stadium on campus that's nice. Obviously wouldn't be able to hold anything, Mountain West related. So I'm not sure. That's a really good question. Yeah, the State Farm Stadium, I think, is what it's still called.
I forgot. I got that wrong. I'm getting everything wrong tonight.
Who could know? It's always changing. But 25 minutes from campus, in theory, they could. That stadium's massive. I mean, really, really big. UNLV obviously is at Allegiant. That's maybe a little bigger than UNLV football, obviously really good. Allegiant's obviously a state-of-the-art venue. They've got some sections closed off in there. I went to a UNLV football game last year, actually. But so I don't know if that would be a fit necessarily or not. But again, I just think where GCU is at is they are so focused on being successful in what they've got. And that's, starting with men's basketball. Next up is going to be women's basketball, and then some of those other sports they've had a ton of success in. So I guess the answer is technically yes, but again, I think their mindset's just going to be really, really dialed in on basketball.
I've been to Arizona Cardinals training camp. You can see there's an NY on my helmet. That stadium is very, very important to me. And
oh yes, of course.
Yes, so
of course.
And
one of the great Super Bowls.
Yes, and as my co-host knows, the New York Giants have won the NFC 3 times this quarter of the century, unlike a team in Texas. And I haven't taken a lot of shots on you with the Cowboys. If you are the athletic department at GCU, what's the first thing you prioritize with the transition happening today?
Man, that is a really good question. I think one thing that's good to keep in mind, I mentioned roster-wise, they were setting the expectation they were going to be in the Mountain West this year when it came to building their men's basketball roster. So I think that's most important, right? You don't want to be playing catch up on the roster and the talent. So they've done that. That's going to just be most important. You've got to be putting talent on the floor. I think the next thing, they've done such a good job. You mentioned the environment. One thing that's unique about GCU is for their in-game environment, they focus a lot on the students. So, a lot of places it's every little square inch is dollar signs, taking away that would, eventually take away students. So, this could be really good seating for XYZ. Let's move the students either to the top or kind of to the side. Their angle's going to be great. They are so focused on the students. The students have really, really good seating. Right on top of the floor that makes it, really, really loud and kind of allows them to be a really big kind of group imposing down on the court. So they've done such a good job investing in the students. I think that next thing to focus on is building up that fan base and that alumni on, what you would maybe call, quote, the other side, your kind of general fan base and getting those people bought in. I think that just comes with time and having moments. You can't force those sorts of things, right? Fandom for you guys, New Mexico fandom doesn't just kind of didn't happen overnight. There's so many moments you guys have probably had you can look back on and say, this is why I'm a New Mexico fan. We joked, that you just talked about the Super Bowl for the Giants, right? Like that stuff. So you've just got to provide those moments. So I think with more and more time and you get some of these really good environments, that will add up. But I think, you look at the opportunity. I was at like I mentioned, the Mountain West tournament, and the way the New Mexico fans, the merch they had, the flags, it was this cohesive unit of fans that were all wearing kind of the same thing. And you felt like within different generations, I mean, even kids had stuff on. There were different generations. People were sitting in different places, even split up at different times, They looked as one cohesive fan unit, a lot because of like the merch they were wearing, if that makes sense. And so I think that's a potential opportunity for GCU to grow, is in that kind of merch and developing those alumni and kind of those non-student fans and really engaging them, continuing to provide those authentic moments and allowing it, whether it be, I don't know, obviously they have their own tailgate on campus, but whether it be, providing tailgates for groups of friends to be able to buy into. They've got their Lopes Club that's done a really good job and it's grown a lot. Their donor arm, that's been really, really good. But just continuing to provide those kind of authentic moments for fans, investing in the alumni, because at the end of the day, the harsh and candid conversation here, right? Students are probably not going to give you a whole lot when it comes to NIL, right? You got to make some money. Who really brings in the money? And this isn't taboo anymore. We can talk about this stuff. We don't have to be weird about it. It's the other fans, right? The older fans, the alumni. Those are the people you really need to engage. They've got to spend the money. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for growth there as well. That would be kind of where I were to focus a lot of our efforts. They've done such a good job investing and engaging and bringing the students along that I think, an opportunity to invest in those fans, if that makes sense.
No, that does. I appreciate that answer. We're joined by Brennan Williams from Go Lobos. Oh, goodness, dude, it's been a night. It's been a day.
I'm the same way. Yeah.
Go Lopes Radio. I saw the L. I don't know. You're never going to come back on this radio show. You're like this guy or this show. You're like this guy doesn't know how to talk. I mentioned let's see if I can get this right. I've mentioned mid-major basketball. I'm fully aware of what Global Credit Union Arena is. Those fans are on top of you. I've seen, what was it, the WAC was at the Orleans. I think it was the 2014, Ty and Grant Foster. I think he was somewhere. Some people had him as an All-American that year, but who did they beat? Was it in 2024? They were
in the tournament
in the not in the NCAA tournament, the WAC championship game.
And the WAC championship is UT Arlington.
That's
famously, if you recall, we had a situation where Colin Moore, and I actually, what's crazy is I actually did a podcast on this, kind of a look back, a sort of like oral history of that moment. GC and UT Arlington had these crazy matchups, just back and forth, always chippy, a ton of technicals, flagrants, just kind of how those games were. Championship game was the same exact way. I mean, it was teetering all game, lots of energy, crazy. Well, man, hopefully this doesn't get out of control. Well, Colin Moore, who's a massive fan favorite, a guard who's super athletic, and he has all sorts of dunks available to him. And about 8 seconds left, and he gets the ball, and there's nobody on the other side of the court. And it's kind of like, okay, is he going to do it or is he not going to do it? GCU's up 8 or 9. He goes down. He does a windmill.
I remember this.
You saw this. So he is then going back, and he's kind of losing his balance, and a UT Arlington player bumps him. And then another player grabs the ball and chucks it at him, like straight out of dodgeball. If you guys watch dodgeball, just straight out of dodgeball, and just hits him. And it was absolute chaos. And so it's at the end of this tournament game. Obviously, GCU had it clinched at that point. The fans are going insane. It's absolute chaos. You obviously don't want players coming on the court because we know, potential tournament game coming up. We don't know, anything could happen. So, yeah, that was kind of – you might have seen that game. That made national headlines. And you got to remember with these games, the WAC championship game is late. It's like the last game of a massive Saturday that are deciding bids. So this thing's on at, if you're Mountain Time or East Coast time, it might be close to midnight where this was happening. And guys are throwing basketballs. It was absolute chaos, but it was awesome to be a part of it. That's what you're thinking of.
No. That I remember that. But my question, it was UT Arlington was chippy, and UNM played them that last year. My question to you is, though, is the fans traveled, the GCU fans were there. It's a 8,000 seat arena. What is a game there like? I mean, people, the spectrum is wild. Viejas is wild. I'm not trying to discredit any other Mountain West schools. Obviously, I think a lot of people resonate with the Pit, but it's a coordinated chant, like chants what I've seen on TV, on ESPN Plus. It's a ruckus crowd. It's like a nightclub.
Yeah. I think it is. Obviously, you see the highlights, right? There are some games, there, and especially you look at the WAC. Unfortunately, there are some not great teams in the WAC that don't bring a lot of juice in. So there's some nights, where it just doesn't have as much energy. But when it's time, when a good team comes to town, which doesn't happen often. If you guys remember a few years ago, San Diego State came to town for a non-conference game, and they were top 25 at that point. That was, I believe, the year after they played in the NCAA title game. Could have those years mixed up, so I apologize. But really, really good team. And when you get kind of one of those games or a really good conference matchup, it's insane. It really is like a party. And at times it's almost it's not necessarily this really crazy organized. Yes, they've got their chants and stuff. It's just kind of like crazy. I mean, music's playing. People are doing all sorts of stuff. It's loud. It's just all sorts of stuff going on. Thunder, the mascot's up in the student section. You don't know what the heck's going on. And so there's this kind of beautiful chaos to it, where at times it's not necessarily, G, C, U, everyone at the same time, but it's just loud. And when it really kind of pops, it is really, really loud in there. And yeah, they sell out. It gets really, really loud in there. Again, I think that the opportunity to grow kind of comes from that non-student fan side. I think, those fans really getting engaged and feeling out the flow of the game, watching the New Mexico fans, they just know the flow of the game, right? So well. They know those moments. So I think that will continue to build, but it's as good as advertised. When they have a really good team come to town, obviously Mountain West, that's going to be almost every night. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be as good as advertised. And when you think of, like I mentioned earlier, New Mexico fans, there's going to be quite a bit in Phoenix. It's an easy trip to come over. Combine that with the environment that GCU is going to have, it's going to be really, really good.
No, I appreciate that answer. I've seen I think they had a little bit of a rivalry with NMSU there in some of the WAC days.
Yeah.
Last question for you, and I don't know,
Please.
How in a different world now, how was GCU involved with NIL leading up to, July 1? And what kind of, did they have a collective? What was it like?
Yeah. So, they do have a collective. Obviously, a lot of that stuff's transitioned over the last 3 weeks. As always, things are always changing. So they did have their NIL collective that was obviously, not affiliated with the university, I believe would be the technical term, part of a LOPE. On top of that, you have the ability, obviously, to donate to the university via their club called the Lopes Club. Gets you access to stuff pregame, different levels. You can travel for a few games. GC will bring you out. So there's different levels you can be involved in as a fan. We'll see. I think a lot of things have kind of been up in the air in regards to getting clarity on some of those things, just because of the announcement. GCU seemed to be laying pretty low from just a kind of not wanting things to maybe simmer too much, right? We saw a little bit of that stuff pop today on the socials. So they've kind of just, it feels like, laid a little bit low. I think more of that will kind of come to the light. But I think, again, it's kind of a little bit of a turning of the page. They're going to be, I'm not sure what this year is going to look like. I would doubt they're going to have any sort of media revenue. Just looking at it on paper, getting invited in early, not a football team. I'm going to guess it's similar to that SMU to the ACC deal, where this year they're not going to have that revenue just for this year. We'll see what they look like as a long-term partner in the Mountain West when that media deal comes out. So that'll provide, obviously, a lot of their funding, and it could be on them. If they sell out tickets, they do a great job with season tickets and then merch and kind of those other areas to continue to feed that NIL fund. But it's developing, it's growing, like everything at GCU, right? They've had to kind of establish things, set the standard, and then just kind of build on that. But yeah, they've got the setup for pregame. If you want to be a donor to donate different amounts, you can donate directly to the athletes via Heart of a Lope is what it's called. And then I think some of that stuff's going to obviously be transitioning in-house. So we'll kind of wait for word on that. I think the infrastructure is there. Lots of room to grow, in my opinion, on that front. But the infrastructure is there. And most importantly, like I said, they've got the talent. They're in the conference. They're going to have really good games. and you can always build around that and kind of create that fan base. So I think a really exciting time for sure.
I appreciate that answer. Ed, do you have anything else?
Brennan, I got to tell you, man, you can feel your enthusiasm. You really can. I applaud you for that. I really do. I think it's you mentioned culture. They've established one. Now it's like, and I think you're looking forward to it maybe as much as anyone else to see how they'll do in the Mountain West. They again, Coach Drew, I think, is built for these kind of moments. His resume is already well established, and for me as a Lobo fan, seeing these teams we mentioned, Utah State, San Diego State, Colorado State, Boise State leaving, kind of hit a little bit. We had a great rivalry with these teams. Colorado State goes back to the WAC. That goes, and so does San Diego State, way back. So I think with the addition of Grand Canyon, that's good for the league. It's good for competition, and it's good to get the competitive juices because everybody's going to be like, "Oh, the Lopes are in town, man." Lobo fans know their basketball. They do. They respect good basketball. And I was interested in what you said about Lobo fans that take over the Thomas and Mack and make it Pitt West. And you said that they all have the same merch. And I have to laugh, man, because, they do. And then the New Mexico flags, right? The New Mexico flags, the Zia symbol, they'll fly those too. So,
one thing I wanted to say on that too, that's really awesome, having experienced those games, is also seeing the way the staff and the bench interacts with the fans. Like these games would end. So 2 years ago, they obviously had that crazy run the 8th seed, and Jalen House, and they just went scorched earth, right? They won 4 or 5 games, and every game you could just feel the energy building. Like, oh my, this place literally might explode. After every game, I mean, a lot of the players are coming into the stands to see their families. Patino, I know, obviously, really excited for you guys are rolling, but Patino was coming into the stands with his family talking with fans. Eddie House was talking with fans. He was chirping some other fans. There was that culture. And I think for GCU, one thing, I think this is a good point to kind of end on. I mentioned that group that comes over from University of Phoenix, right? That group, they love sports. There was part of the opportunity that really excited them with GCU. That doesn't happen right in the world they were working in. They love sports. Like they love this stuff. That's why they invest so much, and that's why they care so much. And they want to be around those other fan bases. In the WAC, don't think we were quite getting that. I mentioned the venues, the fans, and the spend and the investment. They weren't quite getting that. So to be alongside a New Mexico, environments like the Pitt, UNLV, what they're doing with Passner, obviously investing like the opportunity in front of them. UNR up in Reno, some of the teams Mountain West has even brought in long-term wise. I think that's what gets them really, really jazzed up and excited. And I think if you're a fan, I think we all can say this. We've been around teams where they don't really, they say all the right stuff, right? We are going to win this year. We're bringing in the guy to do it. And some schools don't really back it up, right? GCU has backed it up. They want to be a part of a conference that has other schools that are as excited and jazzed up to invest in their programs. And they now have that. They're a part of it. And they get to be a part of it this year with everyone else. And then long term, I think they've got a really good seat at the table alongside some really, really good partners that want to, again, not just show up and play some conference games and have a pretty good time. Programs that want to win multiple games in the NCAA tournament. So I think it's a really exciting time to be a Lopes fan, and then to be a fan of mid-major basketball, like you were saying, and then Mountain West basketball as well in general.
Looking forward to seeing the Lopes in the conference in seeing you as well, Brendan. So yeah,
awesome. Appreciate it, guys. Seriously, thanks for having me on, man. This was really, really great, and I think there's a little bit of a learning curve at GCU, right? Some people not familiar. You can Google online, and you could, if you look under certain stuff, you're going to find whatever it can be. So, I'm there to just kind of tell it as it is, and obviously give my opinions heavily influenced on, the athletic side. And it's really, really exciting, and excited for people to experience the Lopes and come on out to a game, hopefully, and we, hopefully you guys come out to GCU Arena as well.
No, it's on the agenda this year. Once I saw that news today.
Let's go.
Brennan, you will be a regular on our show. Thank you very much for your time.
Anytime, guys. Anytime. Just send me the message. You got it.
Appreciate coming out of the bullpen. We'll let him go. Brennan Williams, go Lopes Radio.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Have a good night. All right. Appreciate that. Ed, what'd you take away from that conversation?
Wow, man, that's some enthusiasm. And you said out of the bullpen, back in the day, some of the best relievers would come sprinting in from the bullpen. That guy's a sprinter from the bullpen. He can't wait to get on the mound and, close the game out. That guy's enthusiastic about Grant Canyon basketball, enthusiastic about the Lopes radio. So I can't wait to you know what? That's a great announcement. Unexpected. But as I said, it gets the competitive juices going in the conference because they've got a winning culture, a good coach. I can't wait to see him in the pit. And, again, those other teams are leaving. It gives us reason to have hope that things will be, at least somewhat competitive still in the Mountain West Conference for basketball.
No, I agree with that. I think it's a really good thing. Yeah, his enthusiasm. I don't do this full time. I was busy at my day job today. And everything he sent, and I know he's still listening, everything had an exclamation mark. And I was like, I can tell he's excited. I wish I'm glass half. I'm a cynical expletive, and I wish I had that kind of enthusiasm. I'm glass half empty kind of guy, and my spirit animal is Bill Murray as Peter Venkman in Ghostbusters. It's like,
I remember it.
It's I appreciate. I'm glad they're in the conference, and he's. I feel stupid with the football questions, but I'm glad he was able to join us tonight, and I'm glad I've got his digits. How did I want to end the show tonight? Thursday night, Mike. Oh boy, I can't get anything tonight. I can't get anything right tonight, Ed. It's terrible. I'm trying to lock up another guest for football coverage. Obviously, again, we'll be in Vegas next week, Mountain West Conference football media days. I will write some stuff post media days, if I can say that correctly. This isn't a vacation for us, but I can tell you right now, Tuesday night, we will be watching the MLB All-Star Game. That is the Summer Classic. I take that very seriously. But Wednesday and Thursday, we will be working. I just want to enjoy Vegas for a smidge because when I'm there now, I'm in and out and I don't enjoy it. So, Ed, you'll have to put up with Neff and I that night with the baseball with the All-Star Game. Tuesday night, and I want to make sure Mike Cooper, UNLV, he's with, oh goodness. Anyways, we're going to talk UNLV. He has a Substack, and I really, really recommend it. And I want to do him some justice because his reporting is really, really, really good. You can find him online at Cooper Mike LV. I don't think it's the Scarlet Standard, or is it? Anyway, it's really good stuff, and I don't want to drag this out. Yeah, I'm sorry. It is the Scarlet Standard Media. Recommend what he's writing on UNLV football, which you would think, isn't something that popular. I got to give a shout out to Jason Eck. I think more and more local Lobo fans fall in love with him because, and I'll have to share my page. I didn't snip it. So he will be in, if you're a geek like me, and I paid for it. College Football 26, the NCAA game came out. I guess there's going to be a patch and an update where they put in Spence Nowinski, Luke Schleisner, and Jason Eck. It was already announced, but there was an error with the we have a new. There we go. So his name in the game, if you go to do Dynasty, his name in the game, and I just don't want to scroll. Let me go. Well, his name in the game is Wyatt Emmett, the coach. And so Jason Eck, like one of us, changed his name on Twitter to Wyatt Emmett. And UNM football tweeted it out. Here it is. If you didn't see it, Coach Emmett. And then this is right now before the patch. When you choose the coach, you can create yourself, or you can do Wyatt Emmett. So he's got a good sense of humor there, Ed, to change his name, which I thought was great. Like I said, he's one of us. When he came on our show 2 weeks ago, I was talking to Frank Mercogliano, and Frank was like, can he take his kids there? His wife's out of town. And I was like, I've already told this joke. He's one of us. But I think he's got a good sense of humor. I really hope it works out. I've said, I hope he doesn't hate me for this. I think this schedule's tough. I know this schedule's tough for them. So Ed, any other final thoughts? You know, let me go to the comments and I'll get some final thoughts. We had a lot of GCU fans watching tonight, so they have to put up with me. Yeah, Ronnie Chavez, Dan Marley, Thunder Dan Marley, part of that 1993 Western Conference Championship team. John Romero, I think I already read that. Scott Sanders, thank you for watching. I am looking forward to hearing Brennan in a few minutes. Lopes, our fans are hungry for better competition, and the Mountain West will deliver. I'm sure WAC fans and alumni would love hearing that. Go Logan Dollar, GC, go GCU. Daryl Trujillo at Ronnie Chavez in the D1 era, yes. Others to serve as GC head coach. Aaron, man, these last names. Keeney. Brennan Williams is the real deal. Excited to tune in for the first time. Hope I pronounced that name right. Back to Daryl Trujillo. What do you guys think of the Mountain West schedule will look like this year? I mean, they're going to have to play games in December. Karsten Kem, well said. Brian Moore going to be great. Veronica Diaz, go Lopes. Like the up caricatures. Karsten Kem, Bryce getting involved in foreign affairs. Love it. Go back. All right. Appreciate all the GCU people watching. Scott Sanders, yeah. GCU started in Prescott, Arizona in 1949, where that are antelopes. The only similar mascot is the University of Nebraska Kearney Lopers. Yeah, it's unique. It's you know, so I've said that about Lobos. It's unique. Well, if NM and GCU had a child, it would be the Lopes. Great at basketball. John Romero talking shit. Antelope meat sure tastes good when you BBQ it. That is what Marvin Menzies and Paul Ware and MSU would say. The soccer room.
Oh man,
Keno, how you doing? What GCU coming in? How many bids would potentially be now March?
It's a good question.
It's a good question. I mean, I would think it would stay the same at 5 or 6. Pushing it there 4 or 5, 3 or 4. I think the 6 bid league was a bit much. What was it? 4 teams last year. And
I still say 4. I'd still say 4.
Yeah, I would think it would be your usual suspects. I think the jury is out on UNM. But you know, it's as Will Weber said from the Santa Fe New Mexico, it's an expansion team. So yeah, Thursday night, the Scarlet Standards, Mike Cooper. And then I'm trying to lock in. I was supposed to talk to Shannon Kelly from Nevada today, and that didn't happen. From Nevada Sportsnet. I feel really bad about that. So locking down another football guest. I know we're probably going to do a live show next Wednesday night from Circa. We'll keep you posted on that, but we will be there for media days. I know we're trying to lock down with UNM and having Richard Pierce and Gabe Lopez. Those are the two players that are representing UNM that will be there. And then obviously Jason Eck. The players will be Wednesday. Jason Eck will be Thursday. So Ed, any final thoughts now officially?
No, you know what? Great show tonight. Really enjoyed Scott Creagan, who I've known very, very long time, and I'm glad he was able to join us. And Brennan Williams, man, hey, he brought the fire. He did. I was enthused about Grand Canyon joining the conference sooner. After talking to this guy, I'm really enthused because he's everything all about Grand Canyon and the Lopes. So he did a great job.
I got to go to the comment section. I didn't hear about this at Lobo Ronnie. Are you surprised that allegedly, the new PAC paid for bad PR to be said about the Mountain West? I didn't hear anything about that. And, you know, when I do have a second, I am on Twitter all day, and it drives me. I don't want this show to be political at all. I've made some jokes every now and then, but I don't want it to be political anymore. This is a safe haven from being not political now. Twitter drives me nuts in that aspect. And then some of the stuff you just see on Twitter, I don't know. It drives me bonkers. I did not see that. And it's pretty petty, man. Like everybody, I have to preface it if you're not, you know, you're new to the show, and I give my opinion regardless. And I've been super critical of UNM. It's why a lot of people probably don't like, if you met me in person, I don't portray myself. Now, Eric might disagree, or Ed, you might disagree. I'm not a persona when I come on here. I just take my sports opinion, even though it's just sports, differently than I conduct life. I'm probably got a bigger sense of humor than people realize. I think I'm funny, even though I'm probably not. I don't understand. I'm not saying this because this is a UNM centric show. I don't understand the Pac-12. You hear me say it. It's when I think of the Pac-8, the Pac-10, the Pac-12, I think of USC in the Rose Bowl. I think of UCLA winning titles, Arizona in the 90s, Washington in the early 90s with those great teams, with Mark Brunell. They won a national championship. I don't understand what, the conference just broke into two and they joined Oregon State and Washington State. And I have to say it again. It's not a knock on Washington State or Oregon State, but this is, nobody's done really anything with Oregon State and Washington State, that much. I think about TJ Hushmanzada and Chad Johnson 25 years ago beating Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl. Bob Davies, Notre Dame team. I just so weird. And it's we're joining, like I said, I saw a politician say we're joining the Conference of Champions. No, you're not. It's a broken up Mountain West with Washington State and Oregon State. I think it would have been best for all of these schools to just join together. And Lobo fan needs to understand you are not going because the football team has been miserable and awful. And it's, well, why not us? And it's a big market. It blows my mind. Scott Creagan said it tonight. It is a big market. And because people bitch and moan about traffic at the Pit and University Stadium, and the football program hasn't, I've proverbially said it, it shoots itself in its own foot. That's why they're left behind. Bottom line. Ed, I'm sorry. I know it's getting late. I thought it was interesting what Scott said about being on the board like a board to hire Loxley.
You know what? Think about what Marvin Lewis said, though. Marvin Lewis, I forgot he coached here. I totally forgot that he was an assistant here. But think about what he said what he told Scott. It's a boon if you get him. Now, Scott remembers him recruiting Scott here, Marvin Lewis. So when Marvin Lewis says that, you can't discount it and say, he doesn't know what he's talking about because you didn't see what was going to happen, what was going to transpire. You can honestly say, what was he, 3-33?
2-26.
2-26. One of the worst coaches here in Lobo history, and it didn't work out. He recruited a few good guys, but again, I go back to the strength. He got rid of Mark Paulson, I believe. Wanted to bend and flex and be flexible. B.J. Holbrook almost got killed, the quarterback at that time. So it didn't work out for him here. He went to Alabama, was offensive quality control, and then he went to Maryland and won 3 bowl games. But it was not a fit for him here at all. So you can't blame Scott on that. Marvin Lewis is a respected football mind. If he says that, you have to kind of say, okay, take that to the bank and see what happens. And I got to say this, though, and I'm not saying this about Scott or Marvin Lewis. Since the hiring of Mike Loxley, the program has really never recovered. Davey had 2 winning seasons. What did that get him? $22,000 a game? It didn't move the meter. So it's been a long road back. And that's what I keep asking myself. Can they get there this season? Can they get there in the next coming seasons? Because it's been a long road back, man. It has, and I'm hoping they start making some progress this year towards a winning program and changing the culture. That's the key. You just can't have 1 winning season and 5 losing seasons. Hopefully, they start winning on a consistent basis.
And I'll end that tonight. It's I've always described. If you've ever seen the movie Deep Impact with Morgan Freeman and Tay Leone and Frodo, she uncovers the Ellie. It's an extinction level event. We don't have a crystal ball. We could have never foreseen what Mike Loxley was going to do. I mean, it started out as a disaster. He had a sexual harassment suit against him immediately. And then it was the losing and the punching of the coach. My situation, his son's friend that wasn't a recruit that got in an accident and DUI in front of the stadium. And then they lost to Sam Houston State like 4 hours later. He was the asteroid that destroyed, or the comet that destroyed Lobo football, which was what Rocky had built up. Now it was a losing record, but at least, there were years there where they were competing for titles. One thing, and I remember Ed Johnson saying this about Mike Shepard. He was a great guy, but he couldn't win football games. And Jason Eck hasn't won a game yet, but at least, damn it, he's out in public and he's a nice guy. I will say that. He's got the, I think he's aware the honeymoon is probably over after this year. But at least he's not out punching people. He seems like a family guy. He seems like a good guy. And I think when it comes to the Mike Loxleys of the world and the Bob Davies of the world, at least we have that with him right now, which I think is a bonus. Ed, I don't know how you feel about that.
No, it is. But you remember what I said. Danny was a great guy too, and I don't mean this in any other way. And please don't take it like that. They got to win. Bottom line, you have to win. And whenever I see Coach Eck, I always give him the Lobo up. We laugh about that Lobo up because that's his thing. He is very likable guy, but you have to win. That's the bottom line. People want to see winners here. Coach Gonzalez, you and I liked him. He's very, very good to us. When we first started the Pit Press podcast, he came on with us willingly. You'd see him at the press conferences. He always acknowledged us. So I have to, always remember that. And so I think Coach Eck's a great guy, but you got to win. That's the bottom line.
No, you're absolutely right. You have to win. We'll be back Thursday night. Again, Mike Cooper from the Scarlet Standard, talk UNLV football. Try to book some other guests to preview Mountain West Conference basketball. Head to our website, the Pit Press NM. Check us out on socials, X, Facebook, Instagram at the Pit Press NM. We're on TikTok at the Pit Press. Looking forward to Vegas next week. You'll probably join me Thursday night, Ed, but thanks for Scott Creagan tonight.
You bet. No, Scott was a great guest.
Yeah, no, perfect. I think we're going to have him on more. So, yeah, thanks to Scott Creagan. Thanks to Brennan Williams from Go Lopes Radio. I got that right. We'll be back Thursday night, 8 p.m., same Lobo time, same Lobo place. Ed, as always, thank you. Shout out to Nick. Go check out his stuff on the I almost said
a great piece. Yeah, he wrote a great piece. You're absolutely right.
The pitpressnm.com. For my business partner, Eric Moulton. Jacob will be back with us next week or maybe Thursday night if I bug him. Talk to you later. And as I always say, don't do anything that I would do. Have a good one. Talk to you Thursday.